Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzi, host of the Leaders Lab podcast. Today, I have another very, very good friend, good guest, and with an incredible story that I met just recently through our favorite community, the Serving Circle, Aubin Labrosse, Aubin Labrosse, and the American way is we had a chat last week, beautiful chat. A little bit about him is American, based in north of Boston. And just like me, he's a language and travel enthusiast. He speaks he loves languages, and he's been around the world, especially around my neck of the wood, which is Southeast Asia. He's been in Malaysia, has been in Thailand. He actually owns a condo in Thailand. And so next time I go to Chiang Mai, I'll let you up, brother. Okay.
Absolutely.
And he's a computer scientist by training. But then he realized that was not what he really wanted to do. It's not what, gets his heart singing and sets his soul on fire. So he sat on finding his own path. And he's been on a personal growth journey in the last 10, 15 years. And in 2021, he's had his own spiritual awakening. And that's what he's been up to. And he's able to move energy in the quantum field for people, energy healer, rainbow magic, intuition worker, and holistic worker, and helping people with anything that they're stuck with and get unstuck. And that's what he does in a nutshell. There's so much more to it, but that's a highlight overview. We're going to dive deeper into all of those. So without any further ado, Aubin, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Payman. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's all mine, my friend. Pleasure's all mine. So tell us, for people who don't know you, we're going to talk about your business, your impact, and all that later on. But as a person, as a human being, as a man, who's Aubin?
Yes. Aubin is a lifelong learner. I'm a lifelong learner for sure. I was born premature and had a lot of things to learn about even how to move my body. And it's really interesting when you come from a learning level that other people would consider behind, right? Is that you just have to learn what I've learned is that anywhere you feel like you're behind, it just means that you have a deeper respect for the fundamentals.
Love that.
Right. Like I learned to walk in my mid-30s, which is not an experience that most people have, right? Because most people are learning to walk when they're, toddlers, 18 months to 2 years or whatever, right? And if you learn to walk, then you don't really appreciate it because you don't even think about it really. Whereas because I learned to walk much later because I was behind, I have a much deeper respect for the fundamentals of what it means to learn to walk. And that theme of feeling like I was behind and really all that meaning was that I had to study the fundamentals in sort of a deeper way has sort of played itself out through my life. So I think the one thing that I would say when you ask me who is Aubin is a lifelong learner and seeker and discoverer.
Love that. We'll dive deep into it in a moment. First of all, what I like to start with is asking my guests a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know them. Ready?
The lightning round. Let's go.
Yes, yes. What makes you happy as a person?
When I can help somebody transcend a limit that they had.
Love that. What makes you smile?
Sunshine.
Especially in winter.
Warm days. Yeah,
Oh,
especially after the first spring sunshine in New Hampshire after the winter.
Oh, yes. Now, what makes your heart sing? What sets your soul on fire?
I really, really enjoy personal growth and development. I enjoy studying like Buddhism and like any enlightenment practices. Basically learning from anybody that has something to teach on that journey. I really enjoy like finding my own blind spots and seeking my own breakthroughs. Like obviously the container that I'm playing in at the moment is around entrepreneurship and business. It turns out that everything that we come down here play, to do, creating families, creating businesses, creating relationships, is also that our souls can grow. Like I really truly in my journey have gotten to a place where that's my belief now. And so as a result, I'm just doing a bunch of stuff that expands me and grows me and improves the world. And yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Beautiful. Love that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
I used to be a very accomplished self-hater. And I know there's a lot of people out there that hate themselves and
Yes.
really suffer with like internalized anger at the world. And so things like inequity, inequality, but even just self-hatred, or people believing that they have to hate themselves for some reason or other, is a real sort of a mission for me, because it makes me really sad that people, because I mean, I did it for so long, right? And blessedly lucky through my own journey, and the people that were on the path that helped me get to where I am today were able to help me shift that. And so if I could go on any mission to remove something that I don't think needs to exist on this planet anymore, it would be to help humans eradicate self-hatred.
Love that. Love that. Now, what scares you?
What scares me? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I have a few pretty basic fears because I don't walk so well. So, falling over is kind of a constant thing over my head a little bit. I have two pretty irrational fears. I have a fear of X-ray tables and of subways. For some reason, I don't like walking anywhere near where the train goes in, if
Yeah.
the train's not in the bay. Like if the subway, if the bay is empty, and like you walk by where there's like just that empty bay,
You're by
even
the
if I'm
wall.
10 feet, yeah, even if I'm 10 feet away from the thing and there's no possible way I could fall in, I'm over on the other side of the thing by the wall so that I don't.
That's smart. That's smart, especially nowadays, all the crazy. Sometime, I don't know about Boston, but in Toronto, there's some reports of people, some crazy just pushing people. So,
Yeah, see, that would terrify me. So I'm not, yeah.
wow, awesome. Okay. Now, what would you say is your personal superpower?
My superpower is feeling
Mm.
the emotion behind people's words.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Now, let's move on. You like traveling, do you?
I do. Yes, indeed.
We can do an entire episode on traveling, which we may do in the future, but I'd like to take you down a different type of traveling, down memory line. Go back to when you were growing up as a kid. When we're kids, people around us, family, parents, relatives, teachers, neighbors, always ask us, "Hey, Aubin, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What does you answer that
Oh my
question
God.
as a
I
young
hate
boy?
that. I hate that question, Payman. I think it's an unfair question, honest to God, to ask an 18-year-old to decide what they
No,
want
no,
to
no,
do
no,
with their
no, no,
life.
no, no. I'm not asking as 18. I'm asking when you were growing up, like say 5, 6, 7, 8, as a young
Yeah,
boy.
but the answer to that as a young boy is I didn't know, because I
Mm,
isolated not really from my family, but I isolated myself internally
okay.
because I was so different, right? In other
Mhm.
words, I couldn't really barely even move. I had a walker and I could get around, but
Um,
because like I couldn't even I couldn't play with my friends. I couldn't play soccer. I couldn't, in gym class, this
yeah.
is already at like, school age, but in gym class, they made me like keep score because it was the only thing I could actually do. So like even the idea of what am I gonna do for my life, like I didn't have a concept, because when I
Mm,
was a kid, I couldn't think of anything that I could sit at a desk and do. I mean, obviously there are plenty, and I didn't really realize it until, freshman year, that, hey, there's this thing called computer science, and hey, you can get paid pretty well to sit at a desk. But, you know, when I was a kid, all I saw was people interacting with the world physically, and I thought that's what it meant to have a job. And I knew that I couldn't do that. And then so in some very real sense, like I didn't think I would ever really even have a job when I was that little, like when I was 5, 6, 7. I mean, I think I definitely went into the realm of imagination. Like when I got into high school and realized that computer science was a thing, I started saying I was going to be richer than Bill Gates. Like once I had the imagination that, you know, oh, this is possible for me, then I started to go places. But I don't honestly remember as a kid like thinking that I was going to do that I was going to do anything at all. There was just no connection to what I was going to do growing up because I didn't see myself as one of them, or I didn't see myself as capable at
Sure,
that
sure,
level.
sure. Growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
I was a lover. I was a brain, right? So that's the luck of the, even with the handicap and the hard journey that I've had, my joke is I got to keep all the important shit, right? I got to keep the ability to live, laugh, love, learn, all of the brain. So,
Yeah,
you know, I graduated sixth in a class of 300 in high school, and I was always a straight A student. And like so my mom tells the story, right? Because of the handicap, pretty much the school system wanted to put me in all of the remedial classes, right? The classes
mhm,
for the learners who are maybe a little bit slower. But my mom wasn't having any of it, right?
sure.
Because she knew that, you know, I taught myself to read, I think, when I was like 3, right?
Wow.
So in other words, my mom had hard proof that I was intelligent. And so she got in this, I think I was in kindergarten or first grade level. So she got into it with this lady where they're like, they want to put me in like the remedial classes. And mom's like, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to put him in the normal classes, please. And the lady goes, oh, so we'll have to have him take a test, you know. And mom's like, go for it, lady, like go, you know, like bring it on, right? The only reason, I think I was like 6 years old, so that's like you're going into maybe first grade, and I was reading at like a third or fourth grade level. The only reason I didn't get higher is because the lady didn't have the next level of test. I like crushed the reading exam when I was 6. And so then from that, they basically were like, okay, he can do what he wants, right? And that was my mom, my saving grace of my mother. And the reason I love her so much is because she didn't let the school system put me in the classes with the people that didn't have the brain power, because
Mm,
I would have been even more hate the world if that had
sure,
happened.
sure. Wow, beautiful. What was your favorite and least favorite subject in school?
Favorite was all the maths and sciences back then. I mean, I was very analytical, very like if I couldn't measure it, I didn't, you know, like math, science, like prove it. I loved math because you could get a right answer. I
Mm,
didn't I was good. I am good at writing. And now I'm a much better communicator than I was back then. And I am good at, you know, English and writing and communicating and languages and all of that. But I didn't like it as much back then when I was in school because, you know, essays are subjective. Like I like the fact that with science and with chemistry and with math, you could get like an exact right answer. And there's like steps and there's like, oh, you do these 5 things and then there's the answer and that's it. Whereas, you know, with all of the like symbolism and like what did the author mean when he was saying this in this book or blah blah, you know, and it's all subjective. Like that was my not as favorite when I was a kid. Even though, and this was me being lazy, even though I was a good writer and should have been in the honors English classes, I skipped out on those because I was like, I would rather take honors, you know, calculus. I would rather take honors math. I would rather take trigonometry. I would rather take those type of courses and then give myself an easier time. Whereas, you know, my honors English friends are reading like War and Peace, like maybe we only had to read like Great Gatsby or whatever, you know, like so I was definitely like playing the game back then of like, okay, how much work do I actually want to do and like what's going to be worth it for me and blah blah. So
cool. Imagine that we're in the same class, say in grade 10, 11. What kind of student were you? Were you the shy type, the quiet one, the nerd one, the chatterbox, the life of the
it,
class?
Oh, in grade 10, I was totally the nerd, but it was really interesting because so in grade 10 was where I realized that our school actually did have a computer science curriculum. So I started taking that, and that's where I really flourished. That's where I was like, okay, now I think I can actually have a career in this, right? At the time. But the interesting thing about being physically handicapped in a small town and also high functioning is that it's sort of a virtue of a popularity by being different, right? I
Mm,
wasn't the the life of the party or the life of the class the same way that the quarterback is, for example. Like I wasn't as popular as like the quarterback or the cheerleaders, but still everybody knew who I was, right? So because I was the only handicapped person in the school who could at the same time have a cogent conversation with you,
wow.
right? Because all the other special needs students were also like delayed verbal or other, you know, other forms of disabilities, right? So
Mhm.
at the time, even though I would not ever have said I was like the most popular kid in school or anything, I was quite popular just by virtue of being different, and then so people would know me. And so there's plenty of times when I'd be like walking through the halls at school with a friend, and someone would say hi to me, and of course I'd be polite and say hi back. And then, you know, 6 feet down the hallway after we're, you know, out of earshot, I'd turn to the person I was walking with, the friend, and I'd go, "So who was that?" You know, because more people knew me. You know, there was 300 in my class, so there were about 1,200 in the school, four grades with 300 people each, roughly. Um, and so a lot more people knew me than I could hold in my head, to the point where, and this is a funny little story that I enjoy, to the point where I almost got written in senior year for homecoming king when people were voting on like who should
Wow.
get the obviously it went to the quarterback and the cheerleader like it always does, right? That's kind of obvious. That's where we would expect it to go. But I learned later that I was a pretty solid write-in candidate apparently my senior year, just because everybody knew who I was, and I thought that was rather amusing.
Awesome. So when you were in school, were you popular with the ladies?
No, no, no. That didn't come till later. I was very much a nerd. I was in like chess club and gateway and like learning how to talk to women did not come till very much later in my life. Even though I probably had a lot of female friends in high school, but just not in that way at all.
Mm, okay. What was your first job? And do you remember how much you get paid the first time you worked?
I don't remember what I got paid, but the first job was actually very appropriate for me because of my language and English skills and also needing a desk job. My very first job was a proofreader for a local
Mm,
newspaper when I was 16. So I thought it was cool because that was kind of the universe showing me, and it has continued to, that I will always make my own way. Whereas a lot of my friends were like pushing grocery carts or like sweeping movie theater floors or whatever, stuff that I
yeah.
couldn't physically do. I managed to wrangle my first job as a proofreader at a local newspaper. So my job was to take my red pen and read the article and mark it up for punctuation and you know typos and whatever else.
Awesome.
I don't remember what it paid though.
No worries, no worries. Let's move forward. There's a saying that says, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we tell ourselves in our head. So when you opened, you were at some of your darkest, most challenging times in your life. How did you change the story you were telling yourself all day long inside your head to change your reality externally?
Well, that is a great story, and it basically gets to the crux of my journey,
Mm-hmm.
was that you know, I grew up very sort of internalized, very sort of angry at the world, very analytical, very much like if I can't measure it, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist.
Mm,
Um, and then I was, you know, just very, very bitter and like kind of the whole vibe that I would say that I was running back then is life's a bitch and then you die. Like, why would God do this to me? All that shit, right? And basically I just kind of, at the time I made the first jump into personal growth, the only reason I made it was because I had literally cracked. I hated the job I had. I had it for I had been programming since I was 17 and I was cracking at 29. So I'd been programming for 12 years and hated every single second of it, and just kind of just kept compressing with anger and anger and anger and anger. Finally, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So that was the first step, is like, what do I do instead? The second one was realizing that, because I had that in that 12 years of coding, I had hopped around to like 5 different kinds. I had tried every kind of coding you can possibly do, just about. And it took me 10 years, Payman, to figure out, hey, what if the part of programming I don't like is the programming part? Like, what if I should just find a whole career differently at all, right? And so I had that occurrence, right? And when I finally hit that and was like, wait, I can just put all this down. I guess the one thing that the universe showed me that I was good at was, once I put it down for good. Like, I put down a lot of that anger that was misdirected at the wrong career. And as soon as I didn't know this at the time, but I realize it now. As soon as I did, my vibration raised. Like, we talk about that bullshit of raise your vibration and change your life, that whole spiritual hippie stuff that nobody understands. What does that actually mean? Well, in a very practical sense and practical terms, I was holding on to a lot of depression, a lot of anger, a lot of I hate my job. And when I changed careers to something that I felt was even slightly better, which was recruiting at the time, I basically became a technical recruiter instead of a programmer.
Wow.
I was able to put down all of the mess that I was carrying around computer science and how much I hated it. And within a year, I worked as a recruiter in an entry-level position for 1 year. And within a year, Google was calling me to be a recruiter there.
Wow.
And that was a huge up level for me.
Sure.
And around the time I joined Google, I also found a men's group and a girlfriend and all this stuff that was also, sort of helping me along the journey and helping me to process and helping me to grow and helping me to feel better. And so that was really the key, was realizing that life is an emotional experience. And so if you're not processing your emotions, preferably in real time, but as soon as you can, most people don't bother to process them at all, then you're holding on to a bunch of stuff that is keeping your reality something you don't want, because most people focus more on what they don't want than what they do want.
Totally.
So once I found the tools like the Sedona method and the fearless group, the men's group, and the release technique, and all these different tools to actually stop suppressing my emotions, because I had pushed it all so far down that my ex, who I love, called me a head on a stick, because that's all she could feel. Like, she could sense that I was living between here and here. And at the time, it was true. I had a whole physical body that I hadn't even bothered to move into yet. Like, hey, where's your sacral? Where's your belly button? Where are your hips? Where are your, so for me, it was a very slow somatic process of essentially moving my consciousness back into my body. And in order to do that, I had to feel everything that I had stored in there and not looked at. Like, it was like uncorking a bottle and everything, or opening Pandora's box and everything just starts to fly out. But in the letting go, in the releasing, I got a job at Google. I went from $30,000 income as an entry-level recruiter to $210,000. I got to Thailand. I got the condo in Thailand. I started a web company. Like I basically saw manifestation take off like a rocket in my life. And the only thing I had to correlate it to was that I had finally started feeling my emotions. And so that's the key learning of what was like basically 50% of my journey. The other the other piece, and where rainbow magic actually hatched. So once I got good at actually being with my emotions and processing them and letting them go, sort of rising up the scale, if you will, sort of getting lighter and lighter and raising my vibration such that my whole world took off as a response to that. Then what I noticed is I would go around in these same loops. I would, be with the emotions, I would let them go. And then, maybe a day later, 2 days later, a week later, whatever it was, I'd be back in the same thought pattern, having the same loop of emotions and letting it go again and letting it go again and letting it go again. And I got curious and I was like, hey, what is it that causes me to go around in the same loop on this particular topic or on any particular topic? What is it that causes a human to go around in the same sort of circles with feeling the same emotions that they felt before and processing them again? So I started to get real curious about that and discovered that that's essentially what that is what a belief is. Like what is a belief? Well, in the Abraham Hicks world, but also in most paradigms, the easiest way to define a belief is a thought that you continue to think, something that you're familiar with because you've thought it, kind of in a groove. And it turns out that our belief systems actually create some of our emotions. So to give anybody listening a really kind of concrete example, if I have a belief that black cats are cute and cuddly, and Payman has a belief that black cats are absolutely terrifying, and I put a black cat into a room with Payman and I in it, that experience is going to generate two vastly different emotional outcomes for both of us, right? Because Payman believes that black cats are terrifying, so he's going to experience fear. He's going to constrict. He's going to, shrink away, whatever. And I believe that black cats are cute and cuddly, so I'm going to go walk up to the thing and pet it and, have a grand old time, right? And so I got really curious about that next, and I found a team to help me work with my belief systems and realized that I was carrying a bunch of stuff I didn't need. Stuff about being unlovable, stuff about being broken, stuff about, just all these phrases that have this emotional charge on them. So I learned to work with those and shift and make that better and kind of pull the weeds, if you will, weed the garden of all these, like, people call them limiting beliefs, right? And in April of 2021, at one of the MindFix events where we do the belief work, that was the day, that was the weekend that Rainbow Magic came online.
Okay, cool. Awesome. What is Rainbow Magic?
Yeah, so Rainbow Magic is what I call the energy gift that I have. The only reason I call it that is because when it woke up, it was like I had an extra sensory channel in my head. Basically, I call it my connection to the universe. And when I was giving it away, gifting it to people, practicing, like, I didn't really have a name for it. I didn't know what to call it. So I asked the universe, what do you call this? And that's the answer I got back, Rainbow Magic. And I said, why is it called that? And they showed me a mental picture of the metaphor that we have in our culture of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like, it's this idea, this concept of, oh, how do we get to something that we want, right? It's this idea of what's the gap, and this is actually where my life's work has been, and it makes perfect sense why I have this gift. Is it's like helping people navigate the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Because as you move your emotions and fix your belief systems and work on your energy and raise your frequency and all these things, you can see your life improve, just as I saw mine improve with jobs and getting my condo in Thailand and starting businesses and all this cool stuff that I did. But then also, just because of the way evolution works and the way energetic growth works, there will always be that gap. So meaning like when you achieve a thing and you praise yourself for it, and it's like, it's awesome, I got here. Human beings are really good at habituating, because the next thing we do is like, okay, now I'm here. Now what do I want? Now I want this. Now I go here. Now I want this. Now I go here. And so it's like the constant evolution of, okay, decide where you're going, set your intention, get your energy in alignment with that, get your energy in order, go after that, and then achieve it, and then keep going, right? And
Mhm.
so Rainbow Magic is a series of tools and techniques to help people close the gap between where they are and where they want to be.
Beautiful. Wow. How long have you been working with Rainbow Magic?
So it hatched in 2021 April, so it's 2024 May, so it just had its third birthday
Wow,
last month. Basically, it's about 3 years old.
beautiful. One thing that you get me really curious is when you said you worked for Google. What is it like working for Google?
Oh, it's well, so Google and Facebook both. I've had the blessed pleasure of working for both of them.
Oh, wow.
But what's cool about both of them is that it is the closest thing that I can articulate to a amusement park college campus for adults. So
Okay.
like, yes, they expect a lot out of you, right? Like that's like, it's some of the best salaries in the world, some of the most high pressure jobs. Like they measure everything. The metrics are really high. Like it's a demanding job. They don't just let anybody in. But as a result, like they have massage staff on campus and like, all the food you could possibly want and snacks and, you know, tennis courts and volleyball courts and ping pong tables. And I think Google in Mountain View has like 28 restaurants on campus. Like there's a reason that Google typically in the US gets voted the #1 destination to work every single year. Like they haven't lost it in, I don't even know, like 10 or 11 years now. Um,
I heard that food is free there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they call it just like, are you familiar with the US concept of the freshman 15, where you gain
Yeah.
15 pounds when you go away to, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a slang in the US where you gain 15 pounds when you go away to your freshman year in college because you get to eat as much as you want at the dining hall, right? Well, I gained 15 pounds when I started my job at Google Payment, I swear, because just go get, like, not only is it free food, but they have snacks everywhere in almost every building. They have micro kitchens. They have baristas
Wow.
on staff. Basically, you can get Starbucks level coffee anytime you want it. Like, you really have to be particularly disciplined if you don't want to gain a bunch of weight working for Google or Facebook, because the food is free.
Hmm. So you mentioned that it's a very high pressured place, but are they how are the opportunities there for growth? If you really put your head down and you work hard and you show that you have the drive and determination, ambition.
Oh, absolutely. The growth is unparalleled. One of the things that Google and Facebook both will do. I mean, I ended up leaving both because I just knew that I was on my own path and was meant to be an entrepreneur. And I mean, I didn't know about Rainbow Magic. I wasn't really looking for that, but it
Mm.
found me, right? But the point is um once you kind of get into both either Google or Facebook, they
Mhm.
will do their best to keep you for as long as they can, because as long as you're, meeting your goals and metrics and
Mhm.
what they consider a good employee,
Sure.
um they'll keep you, and they'll shift you around with new opportunities or give you whatever you want, as far as like if it's a relocation or like a new project or whatever. All that stuff is staffed internally first, because they know that it is more costly to go and get a new employee
Sure.
than it is to keep one that they already have.
Yeah, because
So
yeah, it's all about investment. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
there are plenty. Like I was only at Google for 3 years, but I was able to work in basically three different domains of the company, because they just happened to need staff in all the places where I went to. And again, because I was already there, it was easier for them and more sort of on brand for them to
Mhm.
just use me rather than hiring from outside. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. For someone who's looking to get into those big companies, what tip would you have for them?
Google and Facebook are actually more selective than all of the Ivy League universities in the United States combined. So tip number one is don't get discouraged. Like if you don't get the first thing you apply for, keep trying. Because so the way I tell the story, which is very much true, I wasn't good enough to get into Google as an engineer. But as soon as I was a staffer, a recruiter with a computer science degree, that set me apart. That made me unique. That made me rare in the world because most staffers, most recruiters don't have their computer science degrees. And all of a sudden, from that, Google called me. So my advice for people that want to work at Google and Facebook is you want to be rare, but that's not necessarily as hard as you might think it is. All it requires is thinking outside the box a little bit. What types of certifications would someone in your profession not typically get? What types of jobs would make you well-rounded that other people that you'd be competing against might not have? And, you know, in the pool of people that are recruiters, most of that comes from banking and comes from sales and comes from those type of professions. And so the fact that I was a recruiter that had a computer science degree made me stand out and unique and desirable. So that's the advice I have for anybody trying to get into. And of course, the disclaimer is I don't speak for either of those places anymore at this point. But that being said, my advice is to stand out and how like really think about, you know, if Google and Facebook both get, you know, something stupid like 2 million online applications per day.
Really?
Like, wow. Oh yeah, no, it's bonkers, dude. It's not like applying online for that type of stuff, even if the thing is listed. That's another one is you really got to tailor your CV to, you know, the exact keywords that are in the
description.
listing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the job description, because there are so many that, you know, it's essentially impossible for any human to keep up with them. And so they just get passed over or ignored. The other tip, if you can, and this isn't going to be the case for everybody, but if you know anybody that works there, get them to refer you, because that's at least a, you know, they'll put your resume in the right person's hands.
Of course, yeah.
And that means that it actually got to a person rather than just hanging out in an online system somewhere.
Absolutely. Just like you mentioned, it's all about standing out, differentiation, and being different. Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about your business. Tell us about your business.
Yeah, so I mean, I basically am building a business around my energy gift. That's essentially what I'm up to in the world. In the beginning, I started with I basically, because I thought I was crazy, like because I thought I was losing my mind when Rainbow Magic hatched, and I didn't know I could really do much. I started out at like I think, you know, you could say that there are a couple of plateaus when you're building a business. The first one is like, let's just get our first sale at all. And so I started with a subscription for like, you know, $250 a month. And I was like, all right, how can I go find my first client? And I got to that point, and I still have my first couple clients are still with me today. And it's really gratifying to have their subscription money come in every month. And then basically what you and I were talking about last time we spoke was I'm in the transition now into the sort of high ticket. So I spent the last 3 years like really refining, like, okay, what is Rainbow Magic? How do I use it? What does it do? How do I help quote unquote regular people with it? How do I get them from kind of the same theme of like, okay, where are you and where do you want to be? And what's the gap in the middle, right? And the gap in the middle, from my perspective of processing belief systems and emotions, is emotional. It is energetic. Because, like, for example, just the same example as the black cat, if
Mm.
Payman thinks cold calls are fun and making calls, to people he doesn't know is a good time, and Aubin thinks that cold calls are absolutely terrifying, who's going to be more successful as a salesman?
Sure.
Right? That exact same thing is true, right? And so now I have a sort of beginning, middle, and end process where I can take people over the course of 3 months from a, complete stuck or kind of like out of alignment with wherever they want to be to, if not totally into alignment with it and already having had it, at least, by 3 months, they'll be making, some really solid steps on the journey, right? Of like, they'll be a lot closer to where they wanted to be than when they began. And the way that I do it, like the actual like logistics of it, is that we look at the energy that's stuck in each one of the chakras, because it turns out what I discovered is that the energy that's in each chakra is tied to the belief systems around the things that chakra is for.
Very true.
So in
Yeah.
other words, the root chakra is for security and stability and stuff like that, safety. And so a big key to manifesting is, or to creating anything you don't have yet, is you have to make it feel safe. If it doesn't feel safe for you to have $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month or whatever it is you're creating, if it doesn't feel safe for you to have the relationship of your dreams, if it doesn't feel safe for you to have the job that you want, then you're not going to create it. So when I first work with somebody, I start with beliefs around safety and security and like, what does it mean to you to have what you want? And is that a threat to your nervous system and stuff like that? And then as we get into the second chakra, that's all about creativity and play and flow and joy and freedom. So then I look at the pieces of the journey. Like I go, for example, I'm like, all right, so, you're a business owner and you're at maybe, let's say 10K a month and you want to get to 100K a month. Well, you're going to have to, refine your offer and do your ideal client. You're going to have to kind of niche down so that you can kind of turn it into a, and I just kind of use my intuition to sort of play out the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and then ask them questions based on what I can feel on how to get them to talk about where they're stuck. Because the only reason anybody's stuck with anything is emotional.
Absolutely. Wow. So powerful. What would you say is your ideal avatar?
My ideal avatar is probably somebody who is obviously interested in personal growth and development, sort of into energy, like at least aware of the chakras. They don't have to be as crazy as me about it, but like, they do have to sort of have a sense of their emotions, like in touch with their emotions, personal growth and development. And then anybody that really feels stuck, any stuck entrepreneurs, anybody that feels stuck in a relationship they don't like, it's that feeling of stuckness that tells us that we are experiencing some resistance that we don't want to feel, right? That's what that means, right? And so that it is that very stuckness that is the gift of, okay, well, what's here? Is it I'm angry because of this, or I'm sad because of that, or I'm whatever, right? And so my ideal avatar are folks that are on the personal growth and development journey, folks that are in touch with their emotions at least enough to feel them while I work, or to, not be completely shut down. You don't have to be like totally open and weepy and things like I am, but there's a spectrum of that. Like people are on the spectrum of sort of attaching the emotions to the body. And then really, as far as like I guess ideal client wise, it's anybody who wants to be more of who they are. It's anybody that wants to experience more of the fullness of their true selves. Because the truth is all of the thoughts, on some level, all of the thoughts, all of the belief systems, all of the structures that come from this mind
Mm,
are essentially false anyway. I mean, this is getting into a little bit of philosophy and
mhm,
emotional stuff. But the real truth is that we are love. We are the energy. We are the awareness that is observing the mind and the body, right? And so my business, my job, my goal in life is to walk more people home into a felt experience of that so that they can go create by choice instead of by default.
mhm. Love that. What would you say is your irresistible offer? What sets you apart from all the other coaches?
Well, what sets me apart is just the fact that um it takes a level of intuition and awareness and depth to be able to pinpoint the exact emotional block that somebody's having, right?
Mm,
It takes a particular sense of, and I still to this day, I don't exactly know how I do it, but that's related to the intuition, the extra channel that woke up when I discovered rainbow magic, is that I can sort of intuitively sense what it feels like. Like, for example, I was with a client the other day and I just said to her outright, I go, it feels like, why bother? It's not going to work out anyway. So why try?
yeah,
Right. And she just kind of stared at me and she goes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it feels like. And so knowing it's interesting because to solve any problem, you must identify it properly first,
absolutely. You know
right? Like
exactly what you're dealing at with this. Yes.
that's what every expert does is they
Mm,
first identify the problem so that they can
mhm,
solve it, right? And
totally.
the truth is in the energy realm and in the emotional realm, it's no different, right? So it's a very sort of a specific frequency that I'm feeling into when I'm feeling somebody's stuckness, because everyone's going to have different, it's going to be different for everybody what they're stuck on.
Sure.
Like the interesting thing I think that does, here's a more succinct way to say what sets me apart from most coaches is that you could take two people that are stuck on the same exact thing. Let's call it, the next level of scale in their business.
Mm,
Let's call it getting to $10,000 a month. And one person might be stuck because they don't feel worthy of the next level. And the other person might feel stuck because they don't know where they're going to get their clients, or they're afraid of how they're going to look or something like that, right? Those are two very different emotional reasons, underpinnings for the same quote unquote problem, right? And so that's what sets me apart, is that I can find the actual emotional underpinning of what's causing the problem for that specific person and then help them to move it. And then usually 99 times out of 100 that I've seen so far, the problem sort of just dissolves and then they come back and go, yeah, my life just improved because we moved the thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's how this works.
mm, okay. Beautiful. Um, tell us about, I'd love to hear about the most remarkable transformation you've had one of your client go through.
So my favorite story ever actually came, I mean, I know I have a lot more, but
Sure.
this one came very early in Rainbow Magic. And it was great because the reason I know why it came so early was because this was back in the day when the analytical version of Aubin, the computer scientist, needed a reason to like go all in on being an energy healer and a woo, gonna be a weirdo. At least that's how I said it, how I called myself back then, right? Because I was like, making that transition from somebody who like is super math and sciencey, super computer sciencey, and into being an energy healer was a whole thing, right? It was a whole like soul searching and do I really want to do this and can I do it and how does it work and what is it and does it
Mm,
really help people or is it just, am I just crazy? Like that whole thing, right? And so one of the very first full hour sessions of rainbow magic I gave, because it had been a bunch of playing around before that, before I even got it into the point of doing a session. And now it has it has the session, which has a beginning, a middle, and an end and an outcome, right? Like I can take people from point A to point B in the span of an hour. But back then I could barely even do that. And so it had just gotten into the span of the sessions. And my friend Madeline came and she said, okay, Aubin, let's play, let's practice. I was giving it away for free back then because I didn't know what it would do. And she said, let's play. And I said, okay, Madeline, what is it that you want? Back then I was still on the metaphor of the pot of gold, the rainbow. Like, what is your pot of gold, Madeline? What is it that you want? And she said, well, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with finding my person in about 20 years of going on dates with men. I'm still single. I'm not enjoying that very much. And she said, I really want to have a baby. I'd like to start a family and I'd like to meet my person. And I said, okay, let's see what we got. And so back then, this was very early days. Now I have a much larger grasp of like the whole chakra system and how to move energy in the body and all this stuff. But back then, all I received was basically 3 different energies for people. There were 3 different colors, and they represented 3 different energies of the energies that the person needed for what they wanted. And what I understood back then, the theory I had, and it's interesting because it was very analytical way to put this theory together, and it turned out to work, which is why I needed the analytical mind, why I needed my computer science background, because I took a very analytical approach to the quantum. And basically what I said was, okay, well, in theory, we are little energetic conduits. The energy starts at our crowns and it processes through our bodies and exits out down our roots and into the earth, right? And there's that little circuit, that little loop. And so my theory was that if somebody has a manifestation that they want, but it's not here yet, right? Like she wants her person and her baby, but she doesn't have them yet, then that means that there's a break in the energetic circuit of that energy of her desire doesn't make it all the way through her body and out into the planet so that it can complete the circuit. That was my theory as just like a computer scientist and like circuit engineer type, right? As I was becoming woo. And so they gave me the 3 colors that I needed. I still remember them to this day. They were green, pink, and yellow. And I still remember her colors. They were curiosity, or her energies. They were curiosity, compassion, and connection. These 3 colors and these 3 energies were the ones that they gave me. And what I started with is like, okay, so land them on her head. Okay, great. They're going in. And I moved them down, get them in the 3rd eye. Okay, great. Go down, get them all up. I think they blocked somewhere in her like solar plexus, like middle of the body region. Like there was a break in the circuit that didn't get it down all the way to her tail and her feet, right? And so we spent the hour, and the reason they weren't making it, and this is the other piece of what I'm able to do now, which is finding the blocks in the way. The reason they weren't making it was just because some old hurts. Like it's basically kind of gets scarred over in there, and stuff doesn't make it through as easily as it could because of stuff that we hold on to, right? So I was able to help her clear that out, and by the end of the hour I had the circuit was running all the way through, right? So I had a theory. I was like, okay, great, the circuit's running now. All she has to do is keep practicing that energy, keep practicing that loop. And so what I did is I gave her a meditation audio. I recorded it for her, and I said, okay, Madeline, your practice now is to, meditate every day and just visualize the 3 colors that I gave you, and practice, visualizing them in a loop that goes from your head to your feet and all the way back around and up, kind of like an egg, kind of like the aura, right? And she left me a testimonial about 3 months later, Payman. I shit you not. She said, 3 months after working with Aubin, I was married and we had our first kid on the way.
Wow.
And the reason I needed that back then at that time was that was enough proof for the computer scientist in me to be like, all right, there's clearly something here, something real here that, I need to pay attention to. And then I just went all in and became a rainbow magician. That's kind of how the universe got me to follow the path. But there is at least one human who exists on this planet that would not maybe have existed that same
You change your
way
life.
without
Change your
the
life. Yeah.
existence of rainbow magic. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. When did you realize that this is your true calling?
Well, I mean, once it hatched and once I saw the good I was doing with it,
Yeah.
it seemed a shame not to do it. You know, like it would be
Yeah.
like, well, what am I gonna do? Die with the secrets to the universe in me? Like it seems like I
Yeah.
should share as much as I can, you know. And then the funny thing about true callings is they sort of just pull themselves out of you. Right.
Mhm.
Like I kind of joke a little bit that I feel like rainbow magic would do itself. It just needs me to you know, come along for the ride and be the 3D representative because it doesn't have hands.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. How are you getting your clients?
Mostly these days by referrals. I mean, like I said, I just shared with you bark.com. That's a new one for me. That's gonna actually get me a pipeline of cold leads. But a lot like I just served somebody on Saturday who referred a friend. And you know, the interesting thing about it is that it does tend to sell itself to a degree because people can point to, oh, all these things I worked with Aubin and all these things are good things are happening in my life. And then they just feel sort of inspired to share that. But you know, I do have a website. I do plan to you know, start doing some content marketing, maybe start a podcast of my own soon. Like I have plans to scale it. We've just basically gotten it into the 3-month front end-ish range. I want to spend some time refining what that is and like really making sure I have that dialed in before I go for the back end. But I have an idea of what it might be like to work with me for a year. I even wrote a signature speech. I was in another program one time to like learn to speak on stages and sell on stages, and I wrote a signature speech that sort of highlights what rainbow magic is and how I've used it to, you know, how my life has basically been a reflection of it. And haven't really had the opportunity to give that talk very often, but you know, it's all on the journey of me becoming a more confident entrepreneur and sort of
That's it.
like you know, all of that. And I know that I'll get there. And you know, like I said, right now a lot of my lead flow is from word of mouth, but
Mhm.
I definitely intend to by the end of this year I'll be into Facebook ads and at least have a 3-month program that I can sell for high ticket. And then we'll go into building a back end and see like what kind of
Absolutely.
like real
Mm.
like life makeovers I can give people. The challenge I'm having is around because you know people say the three niches, the big ones are health, wealth, and relationships, right?
Yes.
And so in my front end, in my 3-month work, what I do is I really go deep and clear out as many like blocks for the person as we can, like as much trauma, as much stuff that keeps them stuck about how they think the world works, what they've created up to now, etc. But in a back end that lasts for like a year, let's say I was gonna, instead of a 3-month program, now I have a 12-month program. I
Mm.
really want them to be able to focus on, you know, the act of deliberate creation, right? Like the ability to get some kind of a result. Trouble is, I don't feel like I have a lot of credibility in building businesses, doing anything with health in the body, with like working out or anything like that, or having an awesome relationship. I have done all three of those things in my life, but what I'm really good at is like the energetic part of it, the spirituality part of it, the you know, getting in alignment of it. And so it'll be an interesting journey to
Yeah.
unfold what
Mm.
the 12-month version of rainbow magic looks like,
Yeah.
is basically where I'm at the moment.
You know what I would recommend is just focus on just sharing your story, how you overcame what you had to go through and overcome. And the people that really resonate with it will resonate, and they will find you, and they will really connect with you at a much deeper level, because as long as you're going to what you're going to, because when someone hires a coach, they want two things. One, someone that is 1, 2, 3, at most 4 steps ahead of them. And number two, someone that is accessible, someone that understands them deeply, intimately. And as long as you
Right.
can focus just on that alone, don't need to help them with everything under the sun. Just focus on that specific thing that's going to trigger and open everything else for that, for them, unlock everything else,
Right.
then you'll be golden.
Right. I agree. So that's the journey that I'm on, and I'm actually kind of excited about Bark, even though it's really simple, because what it's going to do is it's going to actually put a little bit of analytics back in my business.
Sure.
It'll teach me based on how I do on, how many reach outs I do versus how many responses I get versus how many sales I make from that. It'll give me my numbers so that I can just start to actually make my 3-month container much more consistent.
Sure. That's a great way indeed. Go check it out, go test it, vet the people, use that as training. And you have everything just like the cheesy line, nothing to lose and everything to gain. You know?
Well, exactly. And then from there, with a little bit of like beta and stuff from that platform, I can turn it into, like Facebook ads, or,
Yeah.
advertising to a specific avatar on the internet, and then get my
Yeah.
leads that way. And like, we're definitely on the precipice of the rocket taking off, because I know I have a product. I know I have a service that works. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of scaling it out to the rest of the world.
Just like Russell Brunson says, you're just one funnel away, or one call
That's
away, or one
right.
client away,
That's
whatever
right.
it is, you know? One
Yep.
transformation, one offer away. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And and I've also found my own path, especially what changed my life. I told you my story last time, is what allowed me to, my number one challenge was I was incredibly shy. I had no
Right.
self-esteem for many reasons. I have a
Right.
big nose, no air. I used to be fat. So, but then I realized it's not about me. It's about me sharing my story, my gifts, my wisdom, and the people that relate and resonate and identify with me, they will come to me. And I've been able to do that through podcasting, and that completely changed my life. How I found a system. I built a system that allows me to get leads on demand of not just random people, but my exact ideal audience, the people that can really connect, resonate, identify with me. And this is what
Right.
I've been doing, and this is what I'm teaching. And yeah, I already told you about that. You already registered for the 5-day challenge
Yeah,
next
I'm
week. So I'm
registered for the
excited.
one that starts next week, so I'm
Yeah,
excited. Yeah.
I'm excited too. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna definitely make your creative juices flowing, because that's a very unique way of looking at podcasting that not many people are doing. But I was surprised. I'm still surprised to this day, because it's very obvious. But as I say, common sense is unfortunately uncommon these days.
Not so common for most people these days, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what is business? Business is all about trust and relationships and nurturing those relationships, especially high ticket. And that's
Right.
what podcasting is all about, building those rapport, building the trust so you can help people. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for you to be in it next week and all that. Let's start wrapping things up. And to finish, I'd like to ask you another series of rapid fire questions, but this time on advices. Ready?
All right, go for it.
All right. What's the best advice you've received so far in your life?
Best advice in my life. Wow. Honestly, gonna sound a little cliche, but this one was a big one for me when I received it, which is, don't believe every thought that you think.
Love that. Love that. What's the worst piece of advice you've received so far?
Worst piece of advice. I don't know. I don't tend to hold on to those. I mean, I guess I'd say any advice that diminishes empathy, in other words, that doesn't get people to connect emotionally to their fellow humans, is terrible advice. Because especially in my world, everything is energy, everything is essentially emotion, right? Emotion is really just energy and motion. That word
Yes.
really does actually mean that. And so basically, the whole way that reality is created is basically how our emotions interact with the field, with the quantum, with the energy that's all around us, and with the energy of each other. And that's literally what reality is. So if that's true, then any advice that gets you to ignore your emotions, deny your emotions, suppress your emotions, or ignore, deny, or suppress the emotions of someone else that you care about or someone else that you're trying to connect with is terrible advice by default.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Imagine, imagine that you were blessed with a time machine. You can sit face to face with 18-year-old Aubin. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to him, knowing all that you know now?
Well, okay, so there's the poignant life advice, which is that it does get better. That
Mhm.
I would tell him that. And then there's the joke, which is invest in Apple stock.
Or Bitcoin or Zoom. I was just having this conversation earlier with a lady. I wish I had invested in Zoom stocks 4 years ago,
Right, exactly. Well, the thing was when I was, I think it was more like 1997, I was 16 years old,
Mm.
and Apple was, I shit you not, almost going out of business at like $3 a share.
Really?
Because that was when Steve Jobs #2, because it was being run by Gil Amelio at the time, and they had to get Steve back from Next and Pixar in order to save the damn thing. And Apple was at like $3 a share. And had
Mm.
I done anything like that, given that it's been a 7-to-1 split and all the shit that I went through since, I would be a multi-millionaire right now.
Yeah, wow. How much is a share of Apple right now?
I think it's 130, but keep in mind that it's only 130 because they did a 7-to-1 split. It went up to so it went from, $3 to like 7 or 800 and then split 7 for 1.
Wow, indeed. Cool.
So, that's my joke is like, I would tell that kid to invest in Apple and Bitcoin.
Tell me about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
Cool.
like from the perspective of like what would I tell him, like based on my journey and what I'm about, I would basically tell him to probably not be so angry because it's not worth it. And then two is like, maybe just be a little easier and nicer on yourself.
Absolutely. But you know what we can do is learn from those lessons and then spot what's going to be the next Apple, the next Bitcoin, and this time pull the trigger early on.
That's true. That is
Yeah.
true.
Awesome. Do you have your own podcast?
I do not yet. I'm hoping to learn something next week about how to set one up so
Oh,
that I can
oh,
start one.
you're in the right place. What was, just curious, what has been so far the main reason that you haven't started yours?
I think I'm making too big a deal on like
Mm,
where do I get guests? Like I think I'm making it a big deal of like I won't have anyone to talk to, and then a
yeah.
podcast where you don't have guests on is just silly, right? So then I tell myself that because I don't know where to find guests, I am
Mm,
not ready to start a podcast. But I have a feeling that you're gonna teach us something cool about that next week,
yeah.
or that
Yeah.
it's actually a lot easier than we're making it.
Actually,
Um,
actually, once you have your podcast, once you have clarity, what is your podcast going to be about? I swear to you, getting the guests is going to be the easiest thing to do.
well,
Easiest.
and I guess that's the
Yeah.
other piece is just even just the clarity on
Yes.
like what is my podcast going to be about?
That's a big thing. Yes, indeed. And I cover that in detail in the 5 day challenge next week and way deeper even inside my academy. So yeah. So
Right.
imagine, so let's move past forward. Imagine that you currently have your podcast is very successful, and today you're interviewing the most special person in the world, and that is yourself. What's the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much first, and it comes to your mind.
What's the next level of rainbow magic? Like how do we go, where do we go from here that's even cooler than where we've been?
And what's your answer?
I feel like what's pulling on me right now is something to do with I don't think I'll ever become like a full-fledged couples therapist, but there might be something in here for rainbow magic between pairs of people that I
Mm,
haven't done yet. Like, or I do have a little bit of magic for groups that I do on Saturdays for free, just to
mm,
get people to come, get people introduced to the work, introduced to the space, etc. But I think what's emerging, or what wants to come through as I ask the question and feel into it, is that I think there's a lot of work to be done in the realms of communication between two people, whether they're business partners or romantic partners, um, that type of stuff. And that could be a really um, sort of fascinating application of rainbow magic, because at that point it's not just the how does one person see this thing, and what are they making up the story, or how does the other person see it. It's also about the energy as they come together. How do those two energies play off each other, and what are they creating in the middle? And that's a whole different
mhm.
game. It's a whole different ball of wax, right? So I
Yeah.
think that there's probably some rainbow magic for couples out there that hasn't fully been birthed yet, because it's just something that I've just thought about recently, and I'm sort of paving the way into, which
Yeah.
means it has to be downloaded and learned and listened to and grown through and experimented with, and all the things that I've been doing with it for the last 3 years. But I think probably I don't know, if you give me the next 5 or 10, I'll probably have a whole suite of rainbow magic, and maybe even like
Yeah.
a self-serve academy like you have, and all kinds of different stuff that I
Yeah.
can do with it. So I'm really excited to see where it goes, because I know that I'll be doing this for the rest of my life.
I'm excited as well. Can't wait to see where it's going to take you. Awesome. Now, the last question I asked you, that's my favorite question to ask, and that is, what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the greatest, deepest, most profound transformational effect in your life and business? For me, for example, has been starting my podcast. What about you, Aubin?
The smallest thing I did that had profound transformational impact was smile at a girl.
Oh,
So
yes. It opens a new world of
yeah,
opportunity.
so this
Yes.
the story goes that I was in a San Jose airport, and there was this really tall, really pretty redhead over my shoulder. And she sat down and she was chatting up a storm with the guy next to her. So I thought, oh, that's probably her boyfriend, whatever. I'll never
Mm,
interact with her. It's all good. But for some reason she caught my attention, and I always board close to first at most airports. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna sit down, and if I still have a seat next to me when she walks on, I'll smile at her. I don't have anything to lose. Either she's gonna sit down and I'll make a friend, or she'll walk by and I'll never see her again. Oh well. And so to hear her tell the story, Payman, like we've been friends for the last 12 years now. Um, to hear her tell the story, she goes, Aubin flashed me the biggest, brightest, whitest goofball grin of a smile. And this was another manifestation, because I was actually high vibing in love that day. I was actually very high vibrational. I didn't know that at the time, but I do now. And the reason is because I was invited to go to be a groomsman in my college friend's wedding.
wow.
And I was really happy about that. Like, it was just one of the coolest things I had ever been invited to do. And so, anyway, long story short, she sits down. I make a great friend. She teaches me about Feldenkrais. She teaches me about her somatic modality that she has studied. And that becomes the thing that I go on to learn to use to walk in my mid 30s.
Mm,
So, without smiling at this girl, not only do I not learn to walk, but she also was the one who got me into the very first personal growth and development seminar I ever did, which is
mhm.
where you get that great advice of don't believe every thought that you think, right? That you can let them go, that they don't
Yeah.
have to run your life, right? But back then, I thought that I was this thing that produces these thoughts. And so if I hadn't met Jess and had her kind of crack me open and be like, no, you have a body, you have to live in it. There's a whole thing underneath your head that you might want to explore, and then getting me on the personal growth and development journey, and then me getting bit by the bug of it. Like, really, at this point I'm a junkie. I just do it for fun these days, but back then it was all pulling teeth, right?
Mm,
So So really, truly, you can boil my whole life, and even all the way to becoming a rainbow magician, down to smiling at this girl on this airplane.
Wow. Amazing. Wow, what a story. Love that. Listen, love that. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Best way to do so, the website is therainbowheals.com. You can read more about me. You can book a discovery call. The other one is facebook.com/rainbow magician. That's my personal Facebook page. You
Yeah,
can friend me, you can send me a message, etc. And that's pretty much the two that are the easiest is my website and my Facebook page.
love that. Love that. Listen, Aubin, absolute pleasure talking to you. Love your story. Love everything you're doing. Keep shining your light. I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world. Your presence, your impact, your message, your smile, your magic, your rainbow magic, and everything you do. Stay safe. Stay awesome. God bless your brother. We're definitely going to be talking soon, and I can't wait to have you next week with us in the 5-day challenge. Take care, my friend. Have
Yeah,
a good one.
thank you so much, Payman. I'll have a great night. Have a great day. Actually, it's morning for you, right? It's Monday
Yes,
morning. Yes.
9:24.
Have a great
Thank you
Monday, my friend. I'll talk
for
to you
sure.
soon.
Take care. Bye bye. Ciao.